Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Mad Professor. You know where I'm from. I'm just gonna get right into this. Um, the last night was the culmination of the Democratic National Convention, and I think Miss Harris gave a rather brilliant speech that spoke of her upbringing, her way of thinking, and her what she wants to do as president, and I'm here for it. We all should really be here for it because it's a lot of progressive things that she said, like lowering the cost of housing that everybody should want to do, but very few people do. Um, she also spoke of stopping the endless war in Gaza and between Gaza and Israel, which I'm all about because I'm not a huge fan of the U.S. supplying money and weapons to a country that would bomb children to say they're killing their enemies. Because all you're doing when you do that is make more enemies. It makes no sense to me. American imperialism is is what's keeping this war going. To be honest with you, to me at least, that's excuse me, that's my opinion. Um, and she also spoke of her her willingness to buck the trends or to go against a lot of members of her party when she said that because a lot of members are they don't want to come off as anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic rather, and in doing so they just become dogs of war and warmongers because they're afraid of the political blowback of what would happen if they said they didn't support Israel and what they're doing. Now, that's all well and good, and I get on here. I've gotten on here to talk about what in no short order to talk about the fact that Ann Coulter made J.D. Vance correct in what he said about childless cat ladies. And the sad thing is, he wasn't thinking about who he was insulting when he brought that up because the only women he deals with on a consistent basis are childless conservative women. And I'm more than certain he didn't think about that when he said what he said because he always most right wingers and maggots believe that only liberal women or progressive women decide not to have kids out of their wanting to have careers, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because I've always said if you don't think you want a child in your life, you shouldn't have one, and I'm all for it. I'm really all here for it. I know a lot of ladies who don't have kids and their lives, they don't feel no emptiness in their life at all. Um, but for those of you who don't know, Ann Coulter the other day decided that she was gonna excoriate or make fun of um, Gus Walls, who is a 17-year-old who has a nonverbal learning disorder and ADHD. Now he can speak, but he can't learn through words. He has to see what's going on. I may have that backwards. He may only be able to learn through words. But anyway, he was crying the other day and with joy of seeing his father accepting the Democratic nomination for the vice presidency. And he's crying, standing up, applauding, pounding his chest, saying, "That's my dad, that's my dad." He was showing the joy that a lot of us are afraid to show, and including me. I don't always show my joy in things. But he was just thrilled to be there for his dad. She decided to tweet that saying, "Well, that's weird." No, it's not. Joy is not weird. Happiness is not weird. Even for people like me, like I said, who don't like to show it often. It just proves that J.D. Vance might have been right when it came to the women he's dealt with. The childless women that he deal with are mostly conservative, mostly maggot women who are have no joy in life. They almost, I mean, I won't say they don't care about the way the country's going because they do. They just care about it the wrong way. And for him, like I said, for her to prove him right and the women that he deals with show why the conservative movement, the way it is right now, should come to a swift end. And in fact, that's something that was brought up last night as well by former Congressman Republican Eric Swalwell, who is still a Republican, but he was at the Democratic National Convention, just like a couple other Republicans who served with Trump, whose names escape me right now. But the funny thing, and a Republican mayor in from Nevada. It's funny how you didn't see any Democrats at the Republican National Convention, but you saw a lot of Republicans. I'm sorry, you didn't see a lot of Democrats at the Republican National Convention. I think I said say that. But you saw a lot of Republicans at the Democratic National Convention because they see what's going on with their movement, with their party. And it's funny, I'm conservative on a lot of things. I really am. In fact, I'm a registered independent. I just tend to vote Democratic because sometimes Republicans, their way of thinking and their party platform is just a bit much for me, and they're always the party of the government should stay out of your lives unless they don't like what you're doing. Then the government has every right to be in your life, and I'm of the mind you can't have it both ways. Either the government is out or the government's in. And he was saying last night that the Trump is an existential threat to this country. Trump is a weak man trying to portray himself as strong, and I've been saying that for a long time. You could see the weakness in him. It's why he's always worrying about his crowd size. It's why he's always worrying about being told if he's a good boy. It's why he's always worried about his appearance and the way people think about him. It's his ego and narcissism won't allow himself to tell him he's lost, which he has constantly. He's lost over and over. He's lost money in business. He's lost businesses. He's lost a lot of things that he's put his hands on, and he can't deal with that. He's never been taught how to. He's never learned how to deal with that. And it's not that Eric Swalwell wants to vote for Kamala Harris, and these other Republicans that was at the Democratic National Convention wants to vote for Kamala Harris, but they know to save the country and really to save their own party, they have to. They don't have a choice. They're like the rest of us. If we want to save this country, we cannot allow Donald Trump to get back into the White House. And it's not that I'm afraid he'll never leave. I mean, hell, I don't think he's going to live through his second term. But it's the damage he can do while he's there. And so, like I said, we've all got to support progressive policies. We've all got to, right now especially, we have to support some liberal policies, whether you like them or not. Because again, Trump cannot be allowed, and this maggot movement has to be buried, has to finally be buried, cremated, however you want to put it, but it has to die. And for all my Hotep brothers and sisters who has an issue with Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor, get over it. And for those of you who don't know, a Hotep, as described by the Roots Damon Young, defines it as a person who is either a clueless parody of Afrocentricity or loudly, conspicuously, and obnoxiously against progress of the black race. Now, what's funny is Hotep in ancient Egyptian used to mean peace, but now it's been given to these anti-black Afrocentrists. But yeah, Hoteps, you've got to get on board. You just do. There's no other choice at this point. Because I watched it's funny how the Republican Party doesn't care about its black members. When I watched the video by Mother Jones that Garrison Hayes, I think his name is, did, and he followed black Republicans around during the RNC, and the sad thing was their committee had to meet miles away from where everyone else was meeting at the RNC at their place in Milwaukee, because they weren't allowed into the arena to gather the way every other group had been allowed to gather. And at one point, during one of their gatherings, Donald Trump's motorcade was passing by, and the press was getting excited. They were getting excited, thinking they were going to get a visit. And the man didn't even roll down his window, didn't slow down, didn't wave at them. He just drove right by them. Now, if they weren't that important, don't you think he should have met with them? I think so. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Palestinian protests that went on during the DNC. A lot of lawmakers didn't meet with them, but a lot of them did. But at this meeting of the black Republicans, there were no lawmakers, not a one, especially one that mattered to them. Um, you've got to stick with the party that shows you some respect. I'm sorry, and for all you DEI hires of the Republican Party, in the Republican Party rather, yeah, you're DEI hires. I don't give a damn what you say. You're a DEI hire. You need to think about that because the Republican Party is only going to go. They'll knock on your door, but they're not going to enter your rooms. They're not going to go into your house. They're not going to do a damn thing that will make your life any easier. Because guess what? If Maggot gets back in and Project 2025 is enacted, you're going to lose your right to vote just like me. Just like me. You'll be in the same boat. You'll just think your position is better. You'll be on the third oar on the port side rather than the fifth oar on the starboard side. But I guess that's just something to talk about.